Hello everyone, it's time to have a catch up with some of the latest releases in cinema. And let's begin with Thrash is a B movie that has gone straight to Netflix about a storm that hits a town with a group of bull sharks loose in the water. Sounds pretty much the same as Crawl from a few years ago, just with sharks instead. And it is basically the same film, just not anywhere near as good. But don't get me wrong, you can still have some fun with this garbage. Some of the effects, both practical and CGI, were okay. Others were absolutely dreadful. Look at that branch, just let go and you'd be free. The acting all round is also hilariously poor, with some of the most convenient and eye-rolling plot circumstances you will ever see in a movie. Water levels rise to second floors of some buildings but remain conveniently at neck height for others. There is also a birth in this movie that is just downright funny. I will not be forgetting that anytime soon. With the right mindset and even some alcohol on hand, sure, no harm done, and even a few giggles along the way. But I can't in good faith tell you that this is by any means a decent movie that you really need to watch. Thrash gets a 2 out of 10. They Will Kill You is a gory horror action movie starring Zazie Beetz as she enters a strange hotel in search of her long-lost sister, only to discover the residents of this hotel are part of a satanic cult on the hunt for blood. This movie is very stylistically inspired by Kill Bill, some of which is eye-rolling and even a little cheap, whilst other aspects actually did work for me. I did enjoy the peppy energy of the film and its creative out-the-box cinematography at times. It's far from the best I've seen, but it's always good to see a noble effort at least. The movie certainly is trying its best to entertain you, and for the most part it does, with some fun ideas and constantly moving fun fight scenes across very quirky sets, also interjected with some okay humour throughout. But sadly, I think the film just lacks any real originality, and in desperately trying to be different and stand out, not only does it fail to, but it ultimately feels way too messy, and by the end, it really has outstayed its welcome. It's poorly written, being very clunky and obvious with a total lack of subtlety throughout, with equally dreadful dialogue that mostly consists of screaming, swearing and corny one-liners. The music often also felt quite jarring with unusual choices that pulled me out of the film, so often feeling like the song was chosen to try and boost the cool factor of the scene, and it just never worked for me. You've seen it all before and you've seen it done better. Zazie Beetz just isn't a lead actress for me, and she struggled to carry this film. I really didn't care for her character at all. She felt like a placeholder, like it could have been anyone. And despite my praises for the fight scenes and its gore, the choreography ends up getting a little annoying when for the 5th fight in a row, our protagonist is hugely outnumbered and yet they regularly just fight her one-on-one, awkwardly standing around waiting for their cue to rush in recklessly and die. They Will Kill You feels like it's trying to have its cake and eat it. Be edgy with the gore and the political messaging, and yet also completely safe and with zero stakes. I never felt any peril, and frankly found an awful lot of it to be extremely predictable, and the movie just ends up writing itself into a frankly ridiculous corner. Some aspects of the film had been ridiculous and actually worked quite well, arguably being the one original thing it did have going for it. However, the ending just goes too far. Too heavy-handed with its very flimsy lore and rules that it instantly fails to abide by, and frankly, it just rips the narrative apart at the seams, as what you once lightly bought into for the sake of enjoying a movie, now just seems laughably ridiculous and a complete waste of time. They Will Kill You gets a 5 out of 10. I can't say I was that excited to check out the drama from its marketing. Firstly, the sight of Zendaya at this point really just emits a general groan from me, which I will explain later. But secondly, I really had no idea what it was even about. Most of its advertising was millennial GQ-esque photo shoots, which really isn't the best way to market a movie if you're asking me. But it is my job, and it's an A24, and my boy Arpats very rarely disappoints. And you know what? I had a good time with this. A lot better than I expected, that's for sure. It's following a very loved up couple in Robert Pattinson and Zendaya, who, in the process of planning their wedding, Robert Pattinson discovers an extremely dark and messed up secret about his bride-to-be, and starts having second thoughts as the special date hurtles ever closer. Now, to explain my issue with Zendaya, it's absolutely nothing personal, and the truth is, she actually is a decent actress, but she is often overcast and often miscast. I thought she was sensational in the Netflix movie from a few years back, Malcolm and Marie. She's extremely talented, and delivering back and forth dialogue with a range of emotions is a real feather to her bow. But MJ in Spider-Man, she is not, and I think her performances show that. If you stick her in a mainstream Marvel piece, it's generally flat as a pancake. But if you give her an art house emotional trauma piece, oh, she'll give you gold. And the drama is thankfully a situation where she was correctly cast. She was terrific here, as was Pattinson, and they worked fantastically well together too. I was also impressed with the editing. Very small decisions went a very long way tonally and allowed the film to almost breeze between genres, feeling very much like a rom-com to begin with and gradually becoming quite stressed and frantic with elements of horror and, well, drama. That was probably my favourite aspect of the film, just how much it tightens up and suffocates you, the audience, just as much as it does the characters. And the subject matter was interesting too. I won't say too much to avoid spoilers, but it felt unique and original and gave me something to mull over. My major issue with the film is that I just don't think it goes far enough, nor explores its very tangled themes to its fullest extent. By the end, it feels a little too straightforward and simplified for such a muddy grey area that the film insisted on exploring. I can't help but think perhaps a more accomplished writer and director might have been able to just squeeze a bit more out of this particular lemon with more of an emotional punch that I feel the film was sorely missing. But I do think it says a lot that I went in expecting to hate this movie and actually walked out a little disappointed that I didn't like it more. Right now, I'm giving the drama an 8 out of 10. I'd heard good things about Wasteman for a low-budget British indie movie, which I'm always proud to support, and I certainly can see why it's being praised so highly. It's a brutally honest insight on the British prison system and gang culture in this country, with excellent performances from all involved, but particularly from David Johnson and Tom Blythe. The film has a real darkness and intensity to it that will shock audiences and have their pulses raised, and its editing very cleverly interjects small details of prison life without having to drop large portions of exposition. The narrative, however, is a little flat, obvious and predictable, unfortunately, and it often feels like the director behind the camera is almost of a teenage boy's mind. There's very little moral complexity, depth of character, or even a soft underside in contrast to its very bleak nature, and in doing so, it just ultimately feels like an ensemble of spitting, punching, swearing and headbutts. Yeah, this is cool, isn't it? Screw you pigs.
Careful. I don't need to be careful. You be fucking careful.
It so quickly feels meaningless, and after a while it doesn't even evoke a reaction anymore. You just expect it and ultimately find yourself checking your watch instead of being invested by the characters and their journey. It feels so shallow, and it doesn't need to be. A little calm and maturity would have gone a real long way and stopped the film from presenting itself in such a childish manner. I just can't see myself remembering this one beyond its good performances and decent editing. I've seen far better independent British movies at similar budgets, like Dead Man's Shoes. Heck, I've seen far better independent British prison movies, like Bronson, and Wasteman just sadly isn't on the same level. It's a noble effort for a debut director in Cal McMore, with some good aspects to be praised for, but there is still clearly a lot to learn for future outings. Wasteman gets a 4 out of 10. Thank you for watching this video. Please do hit the like and subscribe button and also hit the comments as well. Have you seen any of the movies that we have discussed today? What did you think about them? Let me know down below. Take care. I look forward to seeing you on the next review.